Hi there everyone. In this video I'm going to show you the Tunisian knit stitch. That's what Tunisian knit stitch looks like. It looks very similar to knitting, except it's a lot thicker, and that's the back of it. It looks like purl on the back, but it is a lot thicker than knitting. And then I'm going to show you the Tunisian purl stitch, which looks like that. It's used a little bit more for decoration than anything. It's not too common to use your purl stitch just to make something, but it's actually a very nice stitch, and it's not as thick as the knit stitch, so they all have their place. And then lastly, I'm going to show you how to end your work off, whether you did it in purl stitch, whether you did it in knit stitch, whether you did it in Tunisian simple stitch. It doesn't matter. You can end it off in the stitch that you were working in, and I'm going to show you how to end off your work so that you have a nice finished edging. Mine is a little different because I've shown you how to do it in the knit stitch, how to do it in the purl stitch, so mine came a little uneven. But when you do it just in the stitch that you are wanting to, it comes out perfectly. Yeah, so anyway, that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So let's get started. Alright, so in this video I'm just going to show you a few stitches in Tunisian crocheting. Now with Tunisian crocheting you use a double-ended hook that's got two sides to it, or you can have the one hook there and it has a stopper on the end. It depends on what you're actually doing, but for this example I'm not going to worry about which one I use. It doesn't matter because I'm only using a few stitches, but I really just want to show you how to do some different stitches. Now I do have a video up that shows you how to do Tunisian simple stitch, and so I'm not going to show you how to do that in this video because we've already done that. I want to show you in this video, in this section, how to do Tunisian knit stitch, and it looks very much like knitting, so I want to go ahead and show you that. To do our knit stitch, I've just chained a bunch of chains over here, and you can chain however many you are needing, but this is just an example. So you're going to chain them on. You skip the very first stitch and we're going to go into the next stitch, and you just go into that stitch and bring up a loop. And you're keeping, for this row, you're keeping all your stitches on your hook. So you go into each stitch, so you go into the next one, bring up a loop, go into the next and bring up a loop, and do that all the way across. So just keep going into your next stitch. There's my next one. There's the next one, and you just bring up a loop. So do that all the way to the end of yours, and I'll show you what to do. So I've got all of mine on, and I have 12 stitches, and you need to be aware of how many stitches you have on because you want to keep that consistent the whole way through, and when you do your end stitch it's a little bit hard. Now on my other two videos I do show you how to do the end stitch using a safety pin, but I'm not going to show you in this one. I'm just going to pick mine up as I do on the end. But anyway, so when it's Tunisian, you put on your stitches and you take them off, put on, take off, put on, take off. That's considered one row, putting on and taking off. So my next row now I've got to take them all off. So you always just go through one stitch, whoops, you just go through the first one, and then you go through two, go through two, and go through two. So this is just a real quick summary of getting you started, because as I say I do have some other videos up, and I really just want to show you how to do a few different stitches here. And go through two, go through two. Now for your knit stitch it's going to be very different. This is considered your first stitch, and you don't use this first loop. Don't use that first loop. You go into this one. Now for knit stitch you're going to go through the middle of this stitch. Alright, so there's your bar, and there's your other bar in the back. So you're going through the middle of these two bars, and you just bring up a stitch. Okay, and that's it. You go through the middle of that stitch, through there to the back, and bring up a loop, and this is going to give you your knit stitch. So there's nothing really to it. Find your bar, find the middle of it, and go right through it to the back and bring up a loop. and that's all that you're going to do. So it could not be any easier than that. Now it gives you a knitted look, but it's thicker than knit, so you're going to have to be aware of that because you're getting this big ridge on the back. So you want to use your thicker hook for this stitch because else it's going to be very thick. Now just remember, you got to keep counting so you know where your end stitch is. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. I've got one more because I had 12, and then I'm going to go through my last stitch. So that's really how you're going to do your knit stitch. I'll do a few rows with you if I can get my end stitch. The end stitch, you always just pull up the 2 at the end. Okay, then once again go through 1 and go through 2, go through 2. Now this really does look like knitting. As I say, it's just a little bit thicker than what your actual knitting would be, so you want to go with a slightly thicker hook, just so that it doesn't come out too thick. And you can see I'll do a few more rows with you. So you actually go into that stitch, find your bar and go through the middle of that bar and through there, and that's how you do knit stitch. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a few more. So there's your horizontal bar, your next stitch, there's your next stitch, so you find it and go in between. You're going into the middle of this one right there, and that's you do to each one of your stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and do a few rows so that you can actually see what it looks like when I've done a few rows, and then we'll change and do a different stitch. When you come to that very last stitch, as I say, I have shown this before, so I'm just showing you generically. You have to go in, you don't do a knit stitch like you've been doing here. Don't do a knit stitch like you've been doing here. You just have to go through the 2 loops, and it's these 2 loops over here. It is very tricky. Just go through those 2 in the back and it should look like that, and you just come through them, and then you just do your normal, go through 1, go through 2, and then go through 2, and you just keep going through 2 to the end of that row. Right, and this is what your knit stitch looks like. As you see, it looks very much like normal knitting, except it's a lot thicker because you have all these ridges on the back, which is a little similar to purl, but it's not as thin as your purl stitch or your knit stitch in knitting is. But you have that look. I actually made this hat in Tunisian knit stitch, and it turned out pretty well, and it looks just like knitting, and then that's what your back looks like. But I used a bit of a thinner yarn for this, which is probably a wiser thing to do. But anyway, that's how you do the knit stitch. Now I want to go ahead and show you how to do Tunisian purl stitch. Right, so I want to show you how to do purl stitch now. There's the knit stitch, as you can see, and this is purl. I've got to come on put all my stitches on, that's why it looks funny at the top, but that's the purl stitch over there. Now one tip when you're doing your Tunisian, crochet loosely, don't go tight. It's very hard when you go tight, and especially with your end stitch you don't want to go hard, because that's what you got to capture over there, and you don't want to go too tight because it makes it hard. Now with this purl stitch, it's not used too often. It's more of a decoration or whatever, but I'm going to show you how to do it because it's one of your I suppose basic stitches. So yeah, just remember to go loosely and always count your stitches. I've got 12 on mine, so always count to make sure that you have the correct amount on every row I do. It just saves you a lot of trouble in the long run. But anyway, now for your purl stitch, you never go into the first stitch with any of your Tunisian, you're always going to the second bar. And as I say, go loosely so you can see your bars easily. Now with your purl stitch, your yarn is going to be in front. Okay, so you need your yarn here. It's not going to be in the back. You want to bring it to the front. So bring it to the front of your hook. Now just because of the way I hold mine, I won't hold it like that. Bring it to the front of your hook, and then you're going to go into that loop over there, not like knit stitch, but like your simple stitch, where you just grab your loop, your horizontal bar, not horizontal, your vertical bar. So make sure that your yarn is forward in front of your hook. So I just hold it in front of my hook and then go into this bar. Do it like this. Put your yarn in and then bring this over to this side. Hold it over here and then bring up a loop. And tighten it a little bit. You're going to want this to be more or less equal on either side. So put your yarn there, go into this vertical bar, take your yarn, hold it down over there, and then bring up a loop. And you can see you're making your little purl stitches over here. So yarn forward over there, go into your loop, bring it around, hold it down there, go through and hold it and pull it a little bit so they're more or less equal. Okay, so yarn forward, pick up a loop, bring this there, hold it down and go through there, and then tighten it a little bit so your purl stitch is more or less equal to the one before. Loop, hold it down there and go through. Whoops. There you have a purl stitch. So I'll do it with you for the rest of the row. Go in there, bring this through. See, if you don't hold it, you're going to be pulling it too tight there. So you just hold it just to keep it from getting too tight. Yarn forward, there, hold it there and bring up a loop. Okay, yarn forward, go through there, hold it, bring up a loop. Yarn forward, go through your loop, hold it there and go through. And if you struggle to see your stitches, always pull them up like that so you can see your stitches. That's what it looks like on the back. It's not nearly as thick as this one here. This is fairly loose. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've got one more and I'm going to go through my back 2 loops and bring up a loop. And that's it. Then you do the same thing through 1, through 2, through 2. So it's my return row, and then you've done a purl stitch. And as I say, keep it loose so that it's easier when you do your next round. And there you have some purl stitches. So you know how to do the knit stitch, and now you know how to do the purl stitch, and it takes a while to get used to them. Now what I want to show you is how to end your work off. So you've got a knit and you've got a purl stitch. Right, so to finish off your work, to do your end stitch, you can actually do it in the stitch that you had already been doing. I'm going to show you just normally, and then I'll show you how to do it in the purl as well, because you can end it off that way. So it's really just slip stitch like you do in regular crocheting. So I'm going to show you just normal, and then I'll show you with the purl stitch. So all you do is you go in your stitch like that and you just bring the loop through 2. Go in there, bring it through. Now that's in simple stitch. Okay, go through there. Now if you were doing it in the knit like we were knitting here, you would go through the middle of that stitch and slip stitch all the way through, and then you did a knit one. So you go in, you go for the knit stitch, you just go through the middle of that one and go right through the middle of this one and go right through. And if you were doing your purl, so now we did it in this simple, in the Tunisian simple stitch, I showed you in the Tunisian knit stitch. Now if you did the purl, you remember your yarn would have to be forward. You'd go into your next stitch and hold your yarn, and bring through both. Okay, so yarn forward, go through your loop, bring it forward and go through 2. So that's ending off in all, sorry, yarn must be forward. That's ending it off in all 3 stitches. And then your work will be complete. And I'm just going to do it in regular simple stitch and then your last stitch. And through the end stitch, and then you just cut off your yarn. You just cut off your yarn and you have completed your little sample. Now mine look all different because I did I did simple stitch, I did knit and I did purl. So that's why mine's looking a little bit funky over here, but you understand the essence of it. And that's all there is to the knit stitch, the purl stitch, and ending your work off. And yeah, so that's pretty easy, not too hard. And yeah, so I hope that you've enjoyed this lesson and that you come right. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me and I'll help you as best as I can. So thank you so much for joining me. Bye.